Hey y'all, I'm Todd Clifford, preacher for the Burleson Church of Christ in Hamilton, Alabama. And thank you for joining us for this PTP 365 teen class as we continue our examination of the Sermon on the Mount. Our theme, our title for this study is Walking Through the Mount, and this is Lesson 11. We're going to start Matthew chapter 7 in this study. We're going to look at verses 1 through 5, 1 through 6. And our title for the lesson is Judging Hogs and Dogs. And it could be Judging Hogs and Dogs, or it could be Judging, Hogs and Dogs. Either way, it's going to work. And so let's open our Bibles to the book of Matthew, chapter 7, beginning in verse 1. We'll read together through verse 6. You're going to recognize the first two words of this reading, absolutely. Judge not, that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And the measure that you use will be measured back to you. And why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, and do not behold the plank that is in your own eye? Or how do you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, when behold there is a plank in your own eye? Hypocrite! First remove the plank from your own eye. Then you can see clearly to remove the speck that is in your brother's eye. Do not give that which is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn and tear you into pieces. Now, as we enter into this study, I think most of us are familiar with the truism. That is, it's just a matter of truth that most people stop reading after the second word of our reading today. They get to judge not, and that's about all they've got for you when in any discussion. You know, people, when they're caught in sin, they say the Bible says judge not. You can't judge me. Don't judge me. Only God can judge me. And let me just kind of give you a little 411 on this. Whenever people say that, here's what they mean. I know I'm sinning, but I have no intention to stop sinning. I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I have no intention of stopping, so therefore I'm going to turn this whole thing back around on you, and I'm going to quote your book back to you and show that you are actually not in accordance with your own book, which of course is total foolishness. Now, it's a complete wrenching of the text, but that's the essence of what they're saying. So, the text does not condemn judging. Even in the text itself, the text does not condemn judging. It says, for with the judgment that you judge, you will be judged. And the measure, that is the standard that you use on others, will be measured back to you. Now, again, the text does not condemn judging. The Bible does not condemn judging, at least insofar as the word itself is found. There are a number of words in our Bibles that don't necessarily mean negative things, even though most of the time we associate them with negative things. For example, the word for lust in our New Testament overwhelmingly is used in a negative way. And we never think of the word lust in a good way. And yet, when Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper, he says, with desire I have desired to have this supper with you, or with fervent desire. And the word desire there is the same word that's found everywhere else as lust. And so that word in and of itself is neither positive nor negative, even though its appearance in the New Testament is overwhelmingly negative. All right? The same thing goes with judging. The Bible uses the term both positively and negatively. And just by way of example, in Matthew 19, Jesus is the one we just read. These are the words of Jesus who said, judge not. Now, in Matthew 19, the apostles are in a discussion with the Lord concerning their future because they were very conflicted and confounded with his situation with the rich young ruler, and how Jesus did not change his message for the rich young ruler, and how he dealt with him in a very straightforward manner. And Jesus talked about the problem of riches and trusting in riches. And Peter, in essence, said, "Well, you've told him to sell everything and follow you." He said, "We've already done that. What are we going to get? What's ours? We've already abandoned everything and we followed you. So what do we get?" And Jesus said in Matthew 19 and verse 28, he said, when the Son of Man comes in his glorious kingdom, said, "You'll sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." And so Jesus spoke in those terms, not in that they would be literal judges sitting on literal thrones or in a literal court of law, but he used the concept of judging in a favorable way as a promise to reward the apostles for the sacrifice that they had made to forsake all that they had and follow him. In Luke 7, and it culminates in verse 43, but prior to verse 43, we have the account of Jesus who has entered into the house of Simon. And a woman comes in and begins to wash his feet with her tears and dry it with her hair. And Simon the Pharisee says to himself, if this man were really a prophet, he'd know what kind of woman it is that's doing this. He wouldn't. No real prophet of God would allow this to happen to him. Of course, Jesus knew his thoughts. He said, "Simon, let me just ask you a question. Let me tell you something here." He said, there were two men that were debtors. One owed a great debt and one owed a very small debt. And the king to whom they owed the debt, forgave both of them. In other words, wiped his slate clean for both of them. He says, which one of those two men loved him the most? And Simon said, well, I reckon the one that he forgave the most. And here's what Jesus said in Luke 7:43. You have rightly judged. In other words, you've exercised discernment and you have answered or judged right. In other words, you got the right answer. Other examples that we could note would be Luke 12 and verse 57, where Jesus, uses his audience as an example when he says, "Do you not judge even among yourselves what is right?" And then lastly, in John 7 verse 24, the most, I think, other than Matthew 7:1, the most well-known of all the judgment passages is, "Judge not according to appearance," but what are we told? "But judge righteous judgment." So we're, in that verse, commanded to judge by the same person who gave us Matthew 7 and verse 1. Do not judge according to appearance. Okay, now that word appearance is from a word that means what appears on the face. In other words, do not judge according to how things appear. In other words, what you see immediately, but judge righteous judgment. In other words, do a little investigative work before you make any decisions. Exercise some discernment. Don't jump to conclusions. That way you don't make a false judgment about a situation. And so that's the word for appearance in John 7:24. Now let me just as a quick note, in 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 22 it says, avoid every appearance of evil. And some people have taken that to mean that if anybody at any time could in any way interpret what you do or say in a negative way, you have to refrain from doing that. In other words, that's the very appearance of evil. And so, but the word their appearance is from the original word eidos. In other words, what you see. And so what Paul is telling the Thessalonians is, avoid evil everywhere you see it. That's what he's telling them. Avoid evil everywhere you see it. Every appearance. Oh, there's evil over there. There's a bar. There's this or there's that. I'm not going to go over there. I'm not. There's wicked people over there. I'm not going over there. And so the idea there of appearance is it's considerably different than the appearance with regard to John 7 and verse 24. But I just wanted you to have a kind of a grasp of that word, because there are different words that appear the same in the text. But John 7 says, judge righteous judgment. That means to judge what is right. The righteous judgment just simply means according to those to good and right standards. And we're commanded to do that. And so the word in and of itself is neither positive nor negative. The context determines everything. Now, without question, in my mind, without question, this text is an explicit condemnation of the Pharisees. It's not the matter of judging that Jesus is condemning. It's the matter of what we might refer to as judgmentalism. Now, what I mean by that is people who are always quick to condemn, people who are always quick to find fault, people that are always quick to put others down. That is a picture of the Pharisees. That's a picture of the Pharisees. They were always running around looking for the teeniest, tiniest flaw or fault in somebody else, when it never occurred to them that they had tremendous flaws themselves. And that's why Jesus uses this account of hyperbole. Now, you're looking to pull a little bitty old piece of sawdust out of your brother's eye, and there's a big old 2x4 sticking out of your own eye. That's hyperbole. And what he's saying is that you Pharisees run around looking for the tiniest thing among your brethren, and you don't even consider that you yourselves are 1,000,000 times worse than they are. And so that's the point that Jesus is getting at here, is the judgmental attitudes that the Pharisees had. Now, I just kind of let me just lay out, let me make my case here for this, and then we'll move and then close out. What group could we think of in the Bible that was more judgmental than the Pharisees? Now, let's build our case. In Matthew chapter 12, awful for the priest to eat, and David ate it. Certainly not being a priest, because he was not from the tribe of Levi, tribe of Judah. And Jesus says, you need to go figure out what God means when he says, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. And he said, and on top of that, if you knew what the Bible said, you would not have condemned the guiltless. In other words, they have not broken the law by what they have done. They're guiltless, but the Pharisees condemned the guiltless. Now, here's some other examples. In Luke 18 and verses 9 to 14, we have the account where Jesus tells of two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a publican. And the Pharisee prayed thus with himself, "O Lord, I thank you that I'm not like other men are." And he runs off this list of sinners. He says, or even as this publican. He says, the publican would not even so much as lift up his eyes to heaven, smote himself on the breast and said, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And Jesus said, that's the man who went down to his house justified and not the other. The Pharisee justified himself and condemned the publican. Jesus said the Pharisee was the one who was condemned and the publican was the one who was justified. So the Pharisees condemned the justified. John 9 and verse 24, after Jesus had healed the blind man, and the Pharisees were not happy about it at all, and they just kept hounding the man and hounding his parents about who really healed this man. And finally the man gets fed up. He said, I've already told you how this happened. He said, do you want me to tell you again? Do you want to be Jesus' disciple? And they said, well, we're Moses' disciples. He says, this man, we know this man is a sinner. Now think about that. We know this man, Jesus, we know Jesus is a sinner. The only man who ever lived and did not sin, they said, we know he's a sinner. And so, what does that say about their judgmental attitude? They were willing to call the only sinless man who ever lived a vile sinner. Matthew 26:56-66. They condemned Jesus as a blasphemer and pronounced him worthy of death. Of course, the Bible is very clear that Jesus never did anything worthy of death. He never blasphemed. He never sinned. He never sinned in his body. He never sinned with his mouth. He never sinned with his mind. And yet they said, he is worthy of death. What had he done? Told the truth about who he was. But yet they condemned him as a blasphemer and worthy of death. And so the Pharisees have to be, I think they have to be the target of the Lord's teaching here. Now, let's go to verse 6. It's interesting that in my study, I couldn't, well, let me just put it this way. A lot of people don't know what to do with verse 6. Because the Sermon on the Mount is not exactly the way Jesus preached it. It's a collection. It's a collection of the statements that he made, and probably a summary, because the whole Sermon on the Mount can be preached in about 24 minutes. If you were to memorize the Sermon on the Mount and preach it, which I have, it can be done easily in about 24 minutes. I just don't think Jesus gathered thousands and thousands and thousands of people and gave them a 24-minute sermon. All right, and so, but it's just a collection. So a lot of people understanding that don't know what to do with verse 6. Does it go with the previous 5 verses, or does it go with the next verses, or does it just stand alone? Again, I'm convinced. I'm convinced, absolutely convinced. Verse 6 belongs with verses 1 through 5. That verse 6 belongs with verses 1 through 5. And the reason is because it's an extension of Jesus' condemnation of the Pharisees. Now, I want you to note something here, and you've probably never thought about this. He called the Pharisees, again, if I'm correct, as I'm convinced that I am on this, not that I'm always right, but what I'm saying, I'm convinced this is how this goes. If I'm right, that verse 6 goes with verse 5, and that verse 6 is simply an extension of Jesus' condemnation of the Pharisees. He called them hogs, or he identified them or compared them to hogs and to dogs. You said, well, yeah, that's pretty bad. Nobody wants to be called a hog and nobody wants to be called a dog. Well, that's true. But to the Jew, it was so much worse than that. A hog was an unclean animal. They were not allowed to keep or to eat hogs. And dogs were unclean animals. Dogs did not enjoy a place in society in the first century that they do now, where people treat them as even being better than humans. That did not exist in those days. Dogs were just old mangy mongrels that did nothing but run around and get in the garbage, and just created a lot of trouble and a lot of noise. It wasn't like what we think about when we think about dogs, or at least what I think about, because I love dogs and I've had a lot of dogs. I've still got a lot of dogs. But he compared the Pharisees to hogs and to dogs, unclean animals. In other words, that was a dagger. That was a dagger. He plunged that dagger deep into the heart of those judgmental people, and these people who forced their brethren to live in fear of their judgmental, ungodly attitudes. And so I think clearly Jesus is talking about the Pharisees and how they were judgmental. Now, what is now the explanation of verse 6? Again, this is my take. Could be wrong, but I don't think so, or else I wouldn't tell you. I think first and foremost, Jesus, our worship, that which is holy, and all of our service, that is our pearls, ultimately have to be offered. Else is secondary. Do not pleasing the Pharisees, and do not cast your pearls before swine. Don't worry about what you do with regard to your service to God in view of the Pharisees. You don't worship the Pharisees. You don't serve the Pharisees. You worship God and you serve God. Now think about this. The average Jew lived in constant fear of the criticism of the Pharisees. For example, people could be thrown out of the synagogue, John chapter 12, verses 42 and 43, for condemning or for confessing Jesus. In John 9, the man that was blind that Jesus healed, when they got through with him, they pitched him out of the synagogue, excommunicated him, however you want to describe it. And so people lived in constant fear of the Pharisees. All right? Even the apostles lived in fear of the Pharisees. You know, in Matthew chapter 15 and verse 10, after Jesus said, well did the prophet Isaiah prophesy concerning you, these people honor me with their mouth, draw nigh to me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain they worship me, teaching for doctrine the commandments of men. And then he went on to say, don't you know that what goes into a man's mouth does not defile him, but what comes out of his mouth is what defiles him? Because what comes out of his mouth originates in his heart, and adulteries and fornications, murders, blasphemies, these all originate in the heart and they come out of the mouth, and that's what defiles a man. What a man eats does not defile him. And the apostles, they were scared to death. They said, do you not know that you have offended the Pharisees by what you're saying? Now, think about it. They're walking with the Son of God, a miracle producing, miracle working Son of God. And when they hear him say what he said, knowing that the Pharisees would be furious when they heard this, they were worried. They weren't worried. They were worried about what the Pharisees were going to think about what Jesus said. So what did Jesus say? He says, leave them alone. They're blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind lead the blind, both will fall into the ditch. And so I think here in verse 6, Jesus is just teaching what we might call the rank and file Jew. In other words, what we might say, the man in the pew, of the importance of pleasing God in his worship and his daily living, and do not care what others might think. And then this also, I want to make mention of this. It didn't matter what the Jews did, they could never please the Pharisees. You know, if you lived your life trying to please the Pharisees, you lived your life in vain, because they would never ever be pleased. Jesus condemned them. He said, you know, John the Baptist came neither eating or drinking, and you said he was a glutton, or he said he was demon possessed. The Son of Man has come eating and drinking, and he's a glutton and a wine bibber. In other words, John did one thing and you condemned him. I did the opposite and you've condemned me. In other words, you cannot be pleased. You're never going to be happy with anything that we do because you're judgmental. You're grossly ungodly in your attitude toward others. And so when you of course, he said, we've piped, we've mourned, we've piped, you've not danced, no matter what we do, you're never happy. You'll never do what we think is right. And so Jesus condemned the Pharisees in that regard. Matthew, that'd be it's Matthew 11 verses 17 through 19. If you want to write that down, you can also read more about Jesus' condemnation of the Pharisees in Matthew 23 and verses 4 and 15. Now, in conclusion, here it is. When we worship to please men, preach to please men, or have any other motive in our worship or service to God, rather than glorifying God, we give what is holy to the dogs and cast our pearls before swine. It's just that simple. We cannot preach to please men. We have to preach to please God. We cannot serve. We cannot practice our religious service, as Paul said to Titus, not as doing eye service. In other words, we can go through the motions and make men happy, but we'll never make God happy that way. And so we want to give our full attention and devotion and service and our worship to God and Him alone. And let me just say this, and just kind of put some ideas in your head as young people. There are so many things that young people have to offer the church that many of us old folks don't understand. Look, I don't understand all the new technology. Most of the social media platforms, I'm out. I'm too old to learn them, and to me they change too often. But so many of you stay on top of these things. Use those things to help the church. You use more modern and what we might say unconventional means to build up the church. Talk to your elders and talk to older established folks on ways that you can help the church. Look, old timers like me, sometimes they may not like it because they don't understand it, but it doesn't make it wrong. And just because some other group may be doing it doesn't make it wrong. And so you want to do what is best for the Lord, regardless of what people say. Obviously, everything has to be scriptural. Everything has to be authorized by the scriptures. But don't be afraid to branch out and do new things. Do what works best for you and do what works best for your congregation. Congregations, in my opinion, have lived and served way too long, worried about what every other congregation in the area thinks of them. And when they do that, they're offering up their word. They're giving what's holy to the dogs and casting their pearls before swine, because God's not first and foremost. When God's first and foremost, what we do, again, within the confines of biblical authority, whatever works best for us at Burleson is what we do, and we don't worry about others. And we still have a good reputation because what we have been doing works for us, and we're thankful for that. All right, our time is gone. Thank you so much for being with me today in this study. If the Lord wills, we'll be back at the same time next week, starting in Matthew 7 and verse 7. I hope that you have a great day, a great rest of your week. Lord willing, we'll see you the next time.